of course, is that I was raised as a collection of moons around Jupiter. So, I mean, it's whichever you want to believe. Uh, but yeah, grew up in the Midwest. I'm a Midwestern boy, salt of the earth person here.
Okay. So tell me, when did you realize that music was your calling?
Oh man. So my dad's a musician. He's a singer and songwriter, classically trained opera singer, pianist, guitarist, amazing musician. And so I grew up in a house where there was music. And my sister also, gorgeous voice. My mom, I love her, and she actually is now. As I'm older, I'm recognizing she can carry a tune. But as a kid, apparently she likes to tell this anecdote, which is terrible, but I think telling in some ways. That when I was like 3 or 4, at some point, because she was so out of tune singing me a lullaby, I asked her if she would please not sing me lullabies, which is horrible. I don't believe it. It doesn't sound like me, but I imagine.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, I started playing piano. I think we always had a grand piano, baby grand piano in our house. I started playing piano when I was like 3-ish. I heard something on the radio that I liked, so I sat down and started plunking it out on the piano.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So you were actually playing by ear? You play by ear?
I think that kind of set the tune, pun intended, for how I did learn to play, which is largely by ear. I can kind of fake my way through sheet music. If you give me like an hour per page, I can eventually
Okay.
plunk it out. But
That's not bad.
yeah, I definitely learned by this. I was inspired by the stuff I was hearing, and the music that was around me, and then did the church choir thing and all that. And grew up and did a little bit of choir in school and all that, but I've just always been surrounded by music, and
Okay.
it's been such an important part of my life that it feels like you're sort of born with it, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone, not just me, but everyone's sort of born with it, and you just decide whether or not you want to put that energy into making it your life, your career, whatever.
That's so funny that you just said that, because that was my next question to you, is that I was going to ask you, now that you're in it, there's no turning back. And what was that realization like for you, where you decided this is going to be my career?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of a multi-fold path in a way. Like I always get the sense that I've had many lives, not necessarily before this one in the sense of like, oh, I once was Napoleon, like 50 other people were, but that like within these 30 some odd years that I've had on this earth, like I've died a few times and have kind of come back as a totally different person. And I had careers as a marketing person, doing sales. I had careers as a wedding photographer, which I did for about a decade, and doing fashion photography and all kinds of different stuff. And in my 20s, my early 20s, right after I dropped out of college, basically to join a band, that old cliche, and I was sure that's what I was going to do. And it's something that even from the age of 3, I probably was, rolling around in the back of my head, this idea of like, I'm going to be a musician someday. And then you realize like, oh, there's no someday. Like you just decide at some point in your life, like, is this what I'm going to commit my time to? And it's not a matter of you find the right thing or the right person or the right place or any of that. It's just like, am I willing to dedicate myself to this? And like I said, like once I dropped out of college, I dedicated myself to it and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then in spectacular fashion, as it always happens, the band broke up after a few years, and I was devastated. I mean, it was something that really took a toll on me, and I won't say it turned me off from music, but it took me a long time to find my feet as a musician again. I kept writing here and there. I would get occasional bursts of inspiration and go, oh, okay, I'm going to write something. I'm going to do something with that. But I had another band after that didn't quite work out, and then another band after that didn't quite work out, and then I just felt myself trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Like I just kept being like, I'm gonna make this work, and I think I burnt myself out and kind of quit. And then cut to a few lives later, I was moving to Bali, Indonesia. Right before I moved, not too long before I moved, I met Arnie. Frager, and I had no idea who he was, but a friend of mine told me, "Hey, you need to go help this guy move if you can. He's a guy up the street. I was living in Inverness at the time, and it'd be great if you could help him move. I think he does something with music as well. You might like spending time with him." I was like, "Okay, cool. He does something with music. I'm into that." So I roll up at this dude's house, and like one of the first things when I first meet him, he's like, "Hey, could you move these into that box over there?" And I'm like, "What is these?" And he points, and it's a stack of like platinum and gold records. And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on." First off,
I love it.
big flex there. Second off, who are you? And then he just showed me, the stuff that he'd work on, and it was stuff that I grew up listening to as a kid, like the stuff that inspired me, Michael Jackson, Prince, and all these
Yeah.
cats, just like this music that I was like, "There's no way." And so I told him right there, I was like, "Hey, we're gonna make an album together." I hadn't touched music really in a
Well, you know
while.
what's so funny? Your friend, how serendipitous this whole thing was for
Yeah,
him to just tell you that. It's so funny how the universe connects people together.
yeah,
And if you're paying attention, you heed the
mhm,
call. So the simple
totally.
fact you said, okay, let me go help this guy move. And then you find out, oh my God, this really is the guy that I need to be helping moving.
Yeah, totally. And
Yes.
I find that all of the best decisions come from a desire to serve
Yeah,
and to help
absolutely.
others, and to just be available. Like, I'm not the type of person who, subscribes to the belief that like say yes to everything. There's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, get real
Yeah.
good at saying no, I would say, is
Yes.
just
Okay.
is equally powerful. But when you get a sense of like, okay, this doesn't, this isn't going to put me out. This is something that sounds interesting. I'd love to help a neighbor out. When you have those opportunities, take them, because you
Yeah.
really don't know who you're going to be helping. And
Yeah.
ultimately, whenever you help someone else, you're going to be helping yourself, because it takes your mind off of all of your shit.
Yeah,
Pardon my French,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely. But that's true.
yeah.
So now tell me
And I
this.
always say, sorry to cut you off, but I always say, I love that you said that if you're paying attention, that idea of coincidence. I don't think there is such a thing really as coincidence. I think there's just varying degrees of being able to sort of connect the dots with your own life. And if you can do it, if you really pay attention and go inward sometimes and look at like all those little weird coincidences, you start to see, oh, there's this golden thread, and that is sort of in a lot of ways what embodies it. It encompasses the sense of self. It's just
Yeah.
like, how do I connect these narratives? How do I connect these stories in my life? Oh, when I went and did that one random thing, and now all of a sudden I met my wife, or I met, my future business partner, or this, that, or the other thing. Like, those are such interesting and important moments, but it's easy to miss them.
Well, but you know what I find now? One of the things that I know is that we send out prayers to the universe every day that we
Mm,
ask for something. And the simple fact that you keep saying to yourself or out, I'm a musician, I want to be noticed, I want to be seen, I want to be
yeah,
heard. And so, and the simple fact that you're doing steps towards that, then the universe says, okay, this person is really serious. So let me send him the things that I know that he will need. But
yeah,
again, you do have to be paying attention in order to know, because sometimes it's just opening a page, the right page in a book, and
totally,
that you read that passage and you go, this is what I needed. So
totally.
the simple fact that you and Arnie connected the way you did, and more importantly than that, that the synergy was right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the one thing between Arnie and I that has never faltered, is just like our sense of, yo, we were supposed to find each other. We were supposed to connect around this. Like,
Yeah,
this is a beautiful thing that we're doing. Who knows what happens with it, right? He's had
right.
all kinds of great success in the past. I cannot, put it into my head that, oh, it's going to be just like that. Like, it could be anything, but the process itself and learning through the process, and having someone like him to inspire me and to teach me so many things, and to encourage me to just be who I am, and to use my voice, and to be so kind of steadfast in his desire for me to be heard. is
Yeah.
so cool. Like, it's so cool to have a champion like that.
Well, you know what the funny thing, every time I get ready to ask you a question, you've already led into it. So that's very intuitive. You don't even know that you're intuiting, but that's what's happening. So my next question was like, do you have any influence for a mentor? I know your father was one since he was a musician, but was there a teacher or any other mentor that you've had along the way?
Oh my gosh, so many. Every person I've met, in one way or another, every single person I've met has inspired me in some way along this path.